Hello, my name is James Clegg. I work for the University of Edinburgh's Talbot Rice Gallery, and I'm the curator of Pine's Eye. Pine's Eye is a large group exhibition that runs across the gallery's distinctive spaces. As the exhibition's been closed due to the 2020 pandemic, I've decided to make a series of short videos that explore the work of each of the 12 artists in turn. This week we're going to look at the work of Haegue Yang. We're showing a series of Haegue's sculptures called the Intermediates, a new floor vinyl, and a new sound piece. In this video footage from the Liverpool Biennial in 2018, we can see Haegue's series of sculptures called the Intermediates, which are made from synthetic straw in this very different environment, this different habitat. And I think that's important because Haegue tends to recombine her series of works and tends to explore them in different situations. In this case, they're surrounded by these colourful ribbons, this sense of maples and folk traditions. They're surrounded by plastic plants and flowers as well that describe this kind of forest or woodland. And then surrounding them on the walls is this incredible wallpaper that collages together motifs from modern architecture and technology with these ancient sculptural forms and statues. And on top of all this, it had a soundtrack composed from wildlife samples from the British Library collection. It felt incredibly multisensory and also very liberating as well. There's something about this display, the way that it seemed to mix together traditional craft techniques with industrial processes, the way it seemed to cross from pagan forms and pagan ideas into modernity and modernism and geometric forms. It just seemed to allow for this way of thinking across different barriers and different boundaries that are often kept separate and kept apart. Haegue was interested really in exploring the ambiguities around the term folk. She was interested in the way that different regions claim their own pagan heritage, their own traditions, and yet there's something very abstract and universal about these older cultures as well. There's something very global about them. And she was interested in drawing this out. I'm very aware that she was sort of playing with authenticity as well. She was making something that was synthetic, that operated at a kind of surface level, but also had this incredible intrigue and depth to it as well. In relation to Pine's Eye, the work just seemed to carry so many different ideas and themes that were relevant. These anthropomorphic forms, this amazing hybrid environment, it just felt really energized and alive. There's something very mischievous about Haegue's work. It feels like it has this incredible energy about it, and it's very critical and provocative at the same time. And it seemed particularly important to make the Intermediates the centerpiece of the exhibition. And these are incredible forms. They've got such a kind of character to them that I think they really draw you in. They feel quite animate. And straw weaving is a technique that really does relate to many traditions across the world. And these are traditions that involve very structural weaving as well, that create baskets and wall structures, as well as making things that might be used for more ritual purposes and ceremonies as well. So it's really important for us at Talbot Rice Gallery to be able to assemble together this cast of intermediates. And we've brought together a series of 5 of them. Haegue made a site visit in order to really determine how this work could sit within the very different space of Talbot Rice Gallery's Georgian Gallery. This is a space that retains its original interior. It used to be the Natural History Museum for the university. This is where the ornithology collection was held. Haegue really responded to the space by thinking about recomposing this floor vinyl from a 2019 MoMA commission called Handles to reflect some of the symmetry and the sensibilities of the space. Haegue also made use of our context as a university gallery and worked with Cereproc, who are specialists in voice synthesis, in order to make a new sound piece. This sound piece is based on Haegue's voice, so her voice has been learnt by a computer system, and then it's been made to read Victor Hugo's The Man Who Laughs. This is a book that features a character called Gwynplaine, and Gwynplaine is said to be the basis of the character Joker in Batman. This is a character whose father was killed on the king's orders, and then his face was distorted and deformed in order to make it into this perpetual grin, I think in order to remind the world that everyone was laughing at the mistakes of his father. So he's kind of mutilated and damaged character. And he's a character that moves in these kind of outsider circles between both the working classes and the upper classes. And in a way, he sort of reflects the stupidity of both of them, the decadence and the two-facedness of those in power, but also the weakness and the inability of the working classes to really change their situation. So it's a very provocative figure. At one point in the story, he says, "I am a symbol. Oh, you all-powerful fools, open your eyes. I represent all. I embody humanity as its matters have made it." In Haegue's robot voice, we don't hear this expressiveness, we don't hear this emotion. And in fact, in the kind of flat inflection of this synthetic voice, it's quite difficult to take in the narrative and to really absorb it. So we almost have to approach this story as outsiders as well. We're almost excluded from some of its inner core and inner values.
He was known to have had a natural child, a son. This son was born in England in the last days of the Republic, just as his father was going into exile. Hence he had never seen his father. This bastard of Lord Clancharlie had grown up as page at the court of Charles II. He was styled Lord David Derry Moyle. He was a lord by courtesy, his mother being a woman of quality. The mother, while Lord Clancharlie was becoming an earl in Switzerland, made up her mind, being a beauty, to give over sulking, and was...
Haegue once expressed her attempt to become familiar with a new culture as a lonely process of self-colonization. And in an interview, she described her research into traditional craft techniques and paganism as a result, this straw weaving techniques, as a gateway onto a new place as an outsider. And I think this sets up a really interesting kind of dynamic within this work. It's talking really about familiarity and unfamiliarity. And it's perhaps suggesting that familiarity is quite a violent process. When I think of what it is to become familiar with something, I can't help but think of a lot of modern values. I can't help but think of a particular way of knowing the world. It's full of categories and separations and things that are divided from one another, like the division between culture and nature, or the division between people and animals. All these values that seem to be separated. But what Haegue is offering us in this work is the perspective of an outsider. Haegue's work always really elevates all of these ideas through the use of abstraction. And for Haegue, abstraction isn't a kind of simplification or a reduction. It's actually a very heightened state of the imagination. It opens up this other realm of possibilities and experiences for us. And within this context, the intermediates, which are the stars of the show, can really do their job. They can really work their magic. They are these kind of interlopers between all these different realms of experience.